Taiwan, I'm Joyce coming to you from Taipei with the latest news. To mark 1 year since taking office, Taiwan's Premier Zhou is highlighting his cabinet's accomplishments and giving an update on trade negotiations between the U.S. and Taiwan. Chris Gorin was at the press conference and joins us now from our newsroom. Chris, what did cabinet officials have to say?
Well, Joyce, much of the attention was on negotiations with Washington, due in no small part to how often things seem to change. Now, right now, Taiwan is facing two tariff threats from the U.S. The first is a 32% tariff on most Taiwanese goods. That's been paused for 90 days. And the second is a potential special tariff on semiconductors and electronics, which are Taiwan's most important exports. Now, it was Vice Premier Tseng who gave the updates on the negotiations. And she did mention, actually, that yesterday there was a meeting between Taiwan's Trade Representative Jenny Yang and the U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer at the APEC summit in South Korea on the sidelines of that summit, though she did not say if there was any significant developments out of that meeting. Aside from that, she also said that Taiwan has officially submitted an opinion in the U.S. investigation that could lead to those semiconductor tariffs that I mentioned. So here's the Vice Premier describing what was in that submission.
如果美方对我相关产业再加征关税那其实反而会弱化我国产业赴美布局的能力那增加供应链断裂的风险那其实这个对于美方要追求的目标包括在 AI 及高科技产业的发展，以及背后的经济安全跟国家安全的目标，其实也会产生不利的影响。
Now, beyond the trade talks, Premier Zhou also highlighted what he considers to be the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's accomplishments over the last year. That includes disaster relief and preparedness, accomplishments in reducing crime and improving public safety, and of course the country's overall economic growth. But this is a government that has really been hamstrung by an opposition-led legislature that has frozen or cut much of the budget. Even now, there's a tariff relief package, an economic relief package that's meant to address some of the potential problems that could arise from U.S. tariffs. So while the cabinet is trying to highlight what it's done, many people are wondering how much it can really continue to do.
Thanks, Chris. That was Chris Gorin reporting from our Taipei newsroom. Saturday marks the end of nuclear power in Taiwan. Once one of the most nuclear-reliant economies in the world, the country is now switching off its final reactor. Louise Watt reports.
Every day, Chen Long-chung delivers lunch from his restaurant to the nuclear power plant across the road. The father of two has lived and worked here in Hengchun town in Taiwan's south for more than half his life. But these are some of the final deliveries before the plant is switched off. And with that, the country's nuclear power. Chen thinks that's a bad decision.
那个煤发电应该是没有比那个核能发电还要来得好。我觉得还是核能发电需要继续延役，应该是对百姓比较好，还有对工业也 OK 啦。因为你如果核能没有发电的话，应该电价会涨。
Despite growing unease amongst some about turning off nuclear power, Taiwan's ruling party is pressing ahead with its long-time goal of a nuclear-free homeland. It's been increasing wind and solar sources and reducing coal-fired power in favour of natural gas. Once seen as a cheap and stable way of helping Taiwan industrialise, nuclear power fell out of public favour because of safety fears, particularly after the 2011 Fukushima disaster in Japan, and the problem of where to store nuclear waste. Since 2017, the operating licenses of all Taiwan's reactors have expired. Taiwan's third nuclear power plant opened here on the southern coast in the mid-1980s, when nuclear power accounted for around 50% of the country's electricity. That's now down to 3%, all produced here, the last of Taiwan's 6 reactors to shut down. Taiwan already imports virtually all its energy. That's led to fears about the country's energy supply in the event of a blockade by China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan.
如果发生了什么问题，也只有2个礼拜的储存的时间，风力更不用说了，就是都不是属于稳定的电源。现在最稳定的电源就是核三嘛。
Businesses already worry about a power crunch after several mass blackouts. In a last-ditch effort to keep nuclear power, Taiwan's opposition-controlled legislature amended the law, allowing plant operators to apply to run for another 20 years. That's come too late to keep this reactor running, and the government says it would take at least a year and a half to restart it. But President Lai Ching-te's Democratic Progressive Party is not ruling out bringing nuclear back sometime in the future.
任何的政策变更都必须满足核安、核废、社会共识3个重要的前提，才有可能进行。
Reaching public and political consensus will be no easy task. At least for now, Taiwan has to adapt to a future with no nuclear power, and the uncertainty that brings. Devon Tsai and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Chip in with Taiwan. That's the slogan the health and foreign ministries are using to rally support as they head to Geneva ahead of a global health summit. Reese Ayers has more on their plans for Taiwan's so-called medical diplomacy.
Excluding Taiwan from global health conversations is a loss for all. That's the message from the foreign and health ministries as they prepare to send an entourage to Switzerland ahead of the World Health Assembly, despite not being given a seat at the table. AI-integrated medical treatments and experience developing one of the world's most respected national healthcare systems. That's what Taiwan is offering as it prepares to campaign from the sidelines of the annual World Health Assembly, the decision-making body of the World Health Organization, and convince the world that its tech and medical expertise are not to be ignored.
我们也预计于日内瓦召开国际记者会，经由世界媒体记者呼吁更多国家以及所有 重视全球卫生安全的国际医卫团体一起来支持台湾，以观察员的身份出席 WHA， 并完整的参与 WHO 所有的会议、活动与机制。
Taiwan hasn't held back its criticism of the WHO, calling its decision to place politics above health a betrayal and miscarriage of its core duty, one the foreign minister was keen to repeat.
健康无国界哈。 不能够，就是说漏掉任何一个人或国家。
It's the 9th year in a row that Taiwan has been denied access, and even before then it was only granted observer status. China, which claims Taiwan as its own, continues to block Taiwan's participation.
中国台湾地区在未经中央政府同意的前提下，没有任何根据、理由或权利参加世卫大会。
Taiwan's medical diplomacy campaign is an annual affair, but calls for it to join international bodies like the United Nations and WHO are growing, particularly since the COVID-19 pandemic, when Taiwan demonstrated its medical prowess tackling the virus. Just weeks ago, the US House of Representatives passed a bill that pledged American support for Taiwan's participation in such organizations. More than just an opportunity to flex its medical and technological might, the meetings on the sidelines of the upcoming World Health Assembly will give Taiwan a chance to garner more support for its cause, to be allowed in the room where the conversations are happening about the future of health for all. Klein Wang and Reese Ayers for TaiwanPlus.
Former President Tsai Ing-wen is in the United Kingdom, where she's calling for greater security collaboration between Taiwan and the UK. Tsai met with lawmakers in London. She said the two countries have been exchanging expertise to bolster their defensive arsenals and tackle misinformation. This is Tsai's first visit to the UK since leaving office in May 2024, and it's the last leg of her Europe trip, which also took her to Lithuania and Denmark. Retired U.S. Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery has warned of a closing window to deter China from attacking Taiwan. He says the U.S. should double the number of people sent to train Taiwanese soldiers to 1,000.
As we speak, America's ability to defeat a Chinese attack on Taiwan is eroding. Beijing's military readiness has benefited from a 30-year investment focused on advanced technologies that specifically target U.S. vulnerabilities. In the face of this threat, America's ability to deter China is withering, and thus the risk of a conflict is growing.
Montgomery was speaking at a hearing held by the U.S. House Select Committee on China. Besides urging Washington to increase the size of its training mission in Taipei, he also suggested the U.S. should begin stockpiling weapons in Taiwan in the same way it does for South Korea and Israel. He also called on Taiwan to raise its military spending. Hopes are dimming for a breakthrough in talks to end the 3-year war between Russia and Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin has failed to show up for face-to-face negotiations with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky in Turkey. Instead, both countries have sent delegations to Istanbul for the talks. Rosie Greninger reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Turkey ahead of planned face-to-face peace talks between Kyiv and Moscow, the first of their kind since the beginning of the 3-year war between Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainian leader first met with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara to discuss peace efforts. But as the Kremlin confirmed Russian President Vladimir Putin would be a no-show for the talks, Zelensky took aim at Russia's lack of effort to end the war.
Росія не відчуває, що їй потрібно закінчувати цю війну, а значить, не вистачає політичного, економічного і інших тисків на Російську Федерацію. І тому ми просимо, якщо немає припинення вогню, якщо немає серйозних рішень, якщо немає двосторонніх зустрічей, ми просимо відповідні санкції, які будуть стимулом щодо більш швидкого закінчення війни.
Last week, Putin proposed the direct talks with Ukraine in Istanbul, and in response, Zelensky said he'd attend, despite Moscow dismissing Kyiv and its allies' demands for an immediate 30-day ceasefire first. The Ukrainian president said due to Putin's absence, he would also not attend the talks, instead sending a delegation headed by the country's defense minister. Russia has sent a comparatively low-level delegation to the city. It's a team Zelensky has described as a, quote, dummy delegation. But with the talks still set to go ahead, Turkey's foreign minister called on both countries to find some middle ground.
As long as our aim is to reach peace, we need to ensure that both sides make certain compromises to take a step towards establishing a mutual peace.
It's something that Russia's delegation says they are open to, saying Moscow's aim is to secure a lasting peace.
We are ready to resume negotiations in Istanbul. We are ready to discuss possible compromises.
But Putin's absence has punctured hopes of any breakthrough in the ceasefire efforts. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying he didn't have high expectations for the talks.
And frankly, at this point, I think it's abundantly clear that the only way we're going to have a breakthrough here is between President Trump and President Putin. It's going to require that level of engagement to have a breakthrough in this matter.
Comments echoed by the US president himself, who has been pushing for an end to the war.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together.
Regardless, Ukrainian officials are still expected to meet with the Russian delegation in Istanbul. But with no planned meetings between Putin and Trump, hopes of securing some peace between Ukraine and Russia could be left, yet again, at a standstill. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Be sure to visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow our social media. Finally, have a look at this annual tradition at the U.S. Naval Academy, where freshmen climb a greased monument as a rite of passage. I'm Joyce. Take care. See you next time.